All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's ICE Out of Town Meeting Day virtual training. My name is Jordan Hayden. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Democracy Vermont Campaign Director here at VPIRG, the Vermont Public Interest Research Group. So tonight I am joined by my colleague Josh Ferguson, VPIRG's lead field organizer, and Caitlin Filkins, Richmond Select Board Vice Chair. In just a moment, I'll be passing the mic over to Caitlin for her presentation, but first, a couple of quick notes. If you haven't already, please introduce yourselves in the chat with your name and affiliation if you have one, also your town or city if you may. Also, please note that this training is being recorded for those unable to join us tonight, and we will be sending it out shortly after. So after Caitlin's presentation, we'll have time for some Q&A, which my colleague Josh will facilitate. Then we will give you a quick update on VPIRG's work, upcoming events, and a few important calls to action. So that is a lot to cover in the span of an hour, so I think we should just go ahead and jump right in. So Caitlin, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining here. It's my pleasure to be able to speak with you all tonight. Thank you for taking the time. I'm going to get my screen share up and going here so that we get our presentation up live. Awesome. Okay. And then I'm going to put you all over here so I can look at you instead of just my screen. Like Jordan said, I am the co-chair for the Select Board in Richmond. And I've been on the Select Board for about a year now. I was elected last town meeting day. It has been quite the learning experience, and I certainly have a lot of knowledge from this past year that I'd love to share. And I'm sure there's pieces that I'll have to take away and come back on. But I will make sure that we address any of the questions that we have either here or afterwards, if anything comes up that I'm not able to address today. So with that, I'm so excited to be with this group and that everyone is feeling like this is information that they want to be able to utilize. I think one of the most important things about town meeting day is understanding how it works so that we can leverage the power of the democracy that it enables us to leverage, which is very special to Vermont. And today I actually learned that in Vermont, the first place that women could vote was at town meeting day. So if you were a tax-paying woman and you participated in town meeting day, you could vote on specific topics before you could vote in the any other elections, which I thought was a kind of cool fun fact. So jumping in here, and as we're going, feel free to add questions into the chat. If you want to raise your hand, we can certainly do some questions throughout if you'd like as well. Josh will help me out with some of those just to make sure that I don't miss anything here. One second, let me actually move you all over here. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right, so your voice at town meeting day. We're going to go through a lot of different pieces here. If there's additional things that you want to know, we can certainly tap into that. Just let me know. But overall, we're going to talk about what you can do at town meeting day and how to do it. I think the first time that I went to town meeting day, I'm from Maine originally. I had no idea what to expect or what was going on. And it's really good to have an understanding of what you can do because town meeting day can be extremely powerful for the citizens of the towns of Richmond. So what is it? It is our oldest democratic tradition. We gather, we elect officials, we vote on town budgets, we decide local politics and policies, and we discuss community issues generally. So town meeting day is really meant for the people, and it's an incredible tradition that carries on over 200 years in Vermont. There are a couple different versions of town meeting day. So originally, the floor vote was really the pride and joy of town meeting day. And over time, we have shifted so that many of the towns are using the Australian ballot now. And that would be the more secret ballot, as in you go in, they hand you a piece of paper and you vote on the paper. The polls are open all day, it's private, it's anonymous, and so forth. And of course, it's by number of votes, but there's no discussion that's happening on the floor about the Australian ballot and the things that are in that. It is all privatized. And the reason that some towns do that is because there is a benefit in having the ability to vote for the things that you believe in without having to put that out into the public. And sometimes that is both a blessing and a curse. So some towns have chosen to just use the Australian ballot. The floor vote is really the traditional type of town meeting day, and the floor vote is where there's in-person voting, and that's by hand raise or standing, which we'll go over in some detail. And there's full discussion before the vote, so these things can go all day long, and sometimes there's even lunch included, which I love. And a majority is required in order for that topic to win. Then there's towns that do a hybrid. And Richmond is actually one of these towns, and there's many others that do this as well, where some of the pieces are on the Australian ballot, the paper that you're handed as you walk in, and some of the pieces are by floor vote. And most of the times, this is like budgets can be on the ballot. Our budget is on the ballot. Officers are elected, so anyone that you're electing to a position in the town is on the ballot as well. And any in Richmond at least anything that is in means of donation, so approving donations and so forth, again related to budget really. So with that though, you also get the opportunity to discuss certain things on the floor, and motions can be made, articles are discussed, and an agenda is warned, which we'll go through all of that as well. All right. Okay, so there's three different kinds, and we can figure out exactly which kind yours is. It's really, you can look it up as well. Pretty easy to figure it out, but feel free to ask if you need some help with that. In terms of who can participate, you must be 18 years or older in order to vote. In most places, you have to be a U.S. citizen, except Montpelier, Winooski, and Burlington allow non-citizens to vote in those local elections. And you can check in with your town clerk if you have any questions about if you are able to vote. And you have to be registered to vote, but you can register to vote when you show up. So Vermont makes it really easy for folks to participate in democracy, and it's a great way for us to be able to be inclusive and making sure that everyone's voice is heard. In town meeting day that does either the hybrid approach or the floor approach, you have rights. And those rights are that you can speak on any warned article. And a warned article is any of the articles that have been sent out as part of the agenda for your town meeting day. Those have all been warned at this point. They are publicly available. You can find them on your town website, city website, or you can just search for them and they should pop up. If anyone has issues, let us know. Those articles will be really specific of what those are covering, and it's really important to understand what those are so that you'll be prepared to speak about them. Yes. Yeah, I found that really interesting too, Haley. I don't think it's required to be paid, but they are required to give you the time off. My job is allowing for a paid day they're out of Oklahoma, which I thought was really interesting. Um, Awesome. Okay. So then the other thing that you can do is make a motion and amendments, which we'll talk about in more detail as well. You can vote on any of the questions that come up, and you can request a paper ballot, which we'll talk in more detail too. So those are generally your rights. And as was mentioned, Vermont law requires employees to allow, or and requires employers to allow time off for town meeting day. You have to give 7 days notice, but there is the ability to take that day off. One other thing that's been a struggle for town meeting day generally is childcare and general schedules of people who are not able to make it to town meeting day. That's also why Australian ballot has come into play a lot more. It makes it a little more fair that people can come when they need to come versus having to be there for the full day. And one of the things I was thinking about is how can we kind of break that barrier? And I'm going to send out a note on our front porch forum, but I think that there's a lot of teens that want to be involved too. And since they're not 18 and able to vote, one of the ways that they can be involved with democracy is supporting their neighbors and offering childcare so that their parents can go and participate in town meeting day. So if you know any teens that are looking for a way to get involved, that would be a good way to start. All right. Speaking at town meeting day. So you're in a really big room. You've got all of your neighbors and all of your community hopefully there with you. It can be a little bit intimidating, but this is your time to be able to speak. And a lot of people before us have fought for us to be able to be there and participate and to have this time as towns to have these tough conversations. And they're often tough conversations. In order to speak at town meeting day, it's pretty straightforward. So you would wait until the moderator indicates that it's open for discussion on the article. So they're going to start from the top and work their way through the articles that have been warned. So Article 1, they'll discuss the topic from the moderator explaining it. The select board may discuss it, and then they'll open it up for discussion. And at that point, you can raise your hand. And then the moderator will recognize you. There's likely going to be a lot of people raising their hands, so just be patient. When you are called on, you stand up. So the big crowd, everyone's sitting down. If you're already standing, great, step forward so that people understand that you're the one speaking, or just stand up, state your name clearly, your full name. Most towns also want you to state just where you're from generally. So I would say something like, I like my road essentially. So Katie, Richmond, I live up wherever. And then speak your mind. This is your time to make your piece and say what you need to say. I find that it's really easy to get carried away and be verbose in these. And the more clear and concise that you can be, the more your message will go across really effectively. If you are not the kind of person that likes to speak up in public, prepare your notes. Go in and look at all the articles and prepare exactly what you want to say. It's totally fine to read off a piece of paper or off of a phone. That is all very acceptable things to do and to be able to prepare for that participation. And then as you're speaking to the moderator. So the moderator will be up in the front of the room and they'll be the one that is kind of calling out who can speak on and so forth. And you would just address everything to the moderator themselves. Keep it brief. There's going to be a lot of other people that want to speak too, but take your time to say your piece. Avoid saying things that other people have already said. Sometimes that can actually have the negative effect if it's kind of just over and over again on the same thing. So try to differentiate what you're saying. It's okay to be nervous. Like I said, prepare. If you know that you're not great at public speaking, then write down your notes and just stare at your notes and read it. It's okay to do it however is comfortable for you. And if you don't understand something, it's okay to ask for clarification. So the moderator is there to help everyone be successful in this. And you can ask questions, you can ask for clarification, you can raise your hand and ask for clarification on something throughout the meeting. So use the moderator as your guide, and they will guide you. All right. There's a couple things that happen during town meeting that are important to know about. So these are some of the key motions that you should understand that may come up. The main motion. So this is when we have articles, and those articles, as written on the warned agenda, will come to a vote at some point. And in order for that to come to a vote, someone needs to say, "I move to accept Article 6 as written," or however they want to state that, indicating that they want to put it to a vote of the room. So moving a motion is to put it to a vote to a room. That needs to be seconded. And so if someone moves, I move to accept Article 6 as written, great. Then someone else needs to second that motion. Caitlin Filkins, I second the motion, and that's all you need to say. That puts it up to the vote. So once those two things happen, you have someone that moves the motion, and then you have someone who seconds it, then it goes to a vote. That's the main motion and what you'll see a lot of. Then there's an amendment. The amendment allows you to change the wording or the framing or the phrasing of an article. So there may be an article that is part of your town meeting day that you don't agree with the wording of how it's been framed. You can move to amend that article. So you would say, I move to amend changing this to that, and be clear about what you want to change and how you want to frame it. And as long as you get a second, so someone would then second your motion, then that can be modified by group vote. So again, that would go to a vote. The whole room would decide together on if that amendment is to pass or not. And then if it is, then that article, the wording of it, or however you've changed it, will be amended and it will pass as has been defined in the amendment. Call the question. That ends the debate side of things. So a lot of the times people can get carried away with these conversations. And there's a lot of opinion in that room, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. But at some point you may need to call the question, which means that it ends the debate. It requires that two-thirds of the room agrees with that in order to end that debate. Otherwise, we would go around until no hands are left and allow everyone to speak. So you can call the question. Um, Point of order. Point of order is a means to call out that people are not participating by the rules of order. So Robert's Rules of Order have very specific guidelines, including the ones that you're seeing here. And if someone is going outside of that, let's say passing by someone who has a comment or so forth, or yeah, whatever it may be, a point of order can be called. So you can call out the moderator that they are not allowing for the democracy that is allowed by the room to happen. So you would just call point of order, and then from there. That point of order has been called, it will be recorded, and hopefully the moderator is then taking that. If they don't, you can continue to call point of order, and anyone else can call that too. Paper ballot. So there are things that happen on the floor that not everyone wants to vote on in public. There are certain topics that come up that are moved on the floor that it might be not comfortable or safe for everyone to be raising their hand against it or for it in that room. And so the paper ballot allows a vote to be called and everyone to be able to vote privately without having to, raise their hand on the floor and kind of showcase to their neighbors how they're feeling about something if it's something uncomfortable. That only needs 7 voters to support. So someone could request a paper ballot. You would again raise your hand, wait to be called on. I request a paper ballot, and then it would need seven people total to agree with that request, and the moderator would help get that in order to get those seven. In order to get the paper ballot. From there, what would happen is you would actually go and vote by paper. So then at that point, it actually moves to a paper ballot. Votes are counted in that way. And the room does not need to raise hands and so forth and showcase, what they're voting for. So that's always an option as well. Passover is the last one here, and this one's important too. There are some things that will be on warned agendas, or that are moved, and I'll talk about this in a minute as well, in the room that we may want to pass over. So there's things that are on certain agendas that you may see as you go into the warning. And someone in the room can raise their hand and say, I move to pass over this article. And as long as that's seconded, it will go to a vote. And if it is the majority saying, yes, we want to pass over this, then that would not be discussed in that room. That article would be completely passed over. There'd be no further action upon that article. Um, does the move to pass over need to be made before the article is moved, or can it be done after the article is moved and seconded before it is voted on? Good question. Let me get back to you on that one. I'm going to throw this over to my the tool here. Please hold. All right, cool. I'll come back to that one, and if we can't answer that tonight, we will answer that after this another time too. Okay. All right. So the moderator can be appealed at any time as well. So if there's something that the moderator has said, oh yeah, that was majority vote, and it was really hard to tell, that can be appealed. And you can call the moderator and say, we want to appeal that. And if majority votes, then it could go back to a vote, or if he did something wrong or she did something wrong, that could be appealed at any time. So there's a lot of, again, power in the room of the people to be able to participate actively and have the right to, call to order, to pass articles, to not talk about things that have come up that not everyone in the room wants to talk about, and to vote quietly. So a lot of really good tools. All right, I know that was a lot, but that is the big piece of things. So how votes are taken. The most common way votes are taken are by voice. So all in favor. And then, so once the moderator calls, okay, all in favor, if you say aye, that means yes, I'm in favor of that. I want this to move forward. I want to pass this. If you say nay, then that means you don't want it to pass. That's no, essentially, and that's the most common method. It's usually there's an easy here of ayes versus nays by volume of vote. But if it's not, then or if it's t generally somewhere in between, then a show of hands would go into play. So. A show of hands is also another way to easily see visually what the room is voting for. But sometimes it's really close. And so you can stand, and they would essentially count each person who's standing. That's an eye. And if that happens when you're standing, the moderator will count you, and as you're counted, you sit down, and they'll help you with that and so forth, so that they understand who they've counted. And then the last being that paper vote, where 7 people can request that, and then it goes to paper vote. Again, if you disagree with the moderator, if you don't agree with something that's going on, speak up. This is for us as citizens, it's for the town, it's for everyone to participate. And that is really the essence of town meeting day. So make it yours and don't be afraid to speak up. There are 2 different types of articles at town meeting day that will be presented. There are binding articles and there are advisory articles, and you'll see them warned as such. Binding articles means the town has to act on the result. This is like if you pass the budget, that's the budget. We have to act on that budget. Let's do something silly. If the motion or that article was that all dogs get extra treats at the town office, that must be put into play. If it is passed, all dogs that walk into the town office will get an extra treat when they come there. So these are things that they must act on. Then you have advisory, which are things that are really used to inform the select board and inform the town. It could be things like, for example, in Richmond, we're talking about fireworks. And if the town still wants to by majority invest in fireworks for the 4th of July year with increasing prices. That is a topic that we've put on our warning to get community feedback so that we can make the best informed decision possible. And many of the articles in towns you'll see are like that, is that they're looking for more input. They need community advisory on different articles, and that is commonly what that's used for. Additionally, there's resolutions, and resolutions can be on state or national issues. Each year over the past, I think, 3 years, Palestine has come up as resolutions that have been proposed. Those would be a good example of what to look at in some of the historical pieces of how that has presented. You can urge legislation to act. It can be a statement on community values, request to officials, but these are non-binding. So these are really an expression of opinion. The power behind advisory articles, though, is that Vermont tends to lead the way on some of the national and state issues, or national, excuse me, where the rest of the country isn't ready yet to, showcase that opinion as powerfully. When we have a room of townspeople who are voting to say, I'm passing this resolution, that means every person in that room by majority has agreed that this resolution is what they want to put out there. And so you can imagine that if you have a lot of towns who are passing a similar resolution on a national issue, it's a really powerful voice. And town meeting day is called to attention nationally. And we have a really great history of calling certain issues to attention on the national level. So super powerful to be able to use it. Usually, if you're in the hybrid approach with the Australian ballot and the floor vote, you'll do your binding articles via Australian ballot, so like your budget and tax rates and so forth. And then you'll do your advisory things on the floor. And that's how Richmond is doing it this year, too. All right. Okay, so The last article in town meeting day is always other business, or the last agenda item there. Other business allows the floor to discuss anything that is brought to the floor by anyone. And so you are allowed to raise your hand in other business and make a motion. And you can make any motion that you'd like to. This could be, I motion that dogs get treats at the town office. And if a person seconds it, it would be discussed and then it would be voted on. So it really can be anything. And this is the power of the floor. Um, these are non-binding. Anything in other business are non-binding, so they're all advisory items, like we just talked about. And again, it's a huge expression of the community, and especially when we vote in majority towards something, it's speaking as a community of what we believe in or what we want to institute and so forth. So in terms of immigration and ICE and everything that's happening with federal immigration enforcement, there's a huge opportunity here to bring this topic to town meeting day. Many towns have already started discussing resolutions of their own that have been passed by the select board. We have one that's up to vote in our next select board meeting in Richmond. I know Burlington had one recently too. And then, of course, Williston started this out. And I think other towns are starting to follow suit as well. That's awesome. We should push for that, and we can discuss that separately of how you can push your towns to pass that as a select board or as a city council. And it is separate from the floor vote of the citizens. So to have the select board say we're going to pass this resolution is great. That showcases the town government commitment. And on top of that, if you also have the citizens of the floor move that as well, you can have both of those things. So you don't, it's not one or the other. It's not, if your town has it, then you can't move it on the floor. Everyone should, that wants to, should bring this to the floor and ask for those of your town to be able to pass this. So, again, this is non-binding, so these would just be advisory, but again, the power behind that is really palpable. Some example phrases that you might use here is I move that, whatever the town name is, advise the select board to explore policies protecting residents from federal immigration enforcement. So this is that if you wanted to advise your select board to take action on making your Fair and Impartial Police Act a little bit more strong than just the state level, or if you want to have them do trainings with your town officials to make sure that everyone understands what a public versus a private space is, and emergency preparedness in terms of how public buildings work and when and where they have power to do things if federal officials are in the building. And then you can also simply speak. So if you forget to say I move, that's okay. Like, you can say things like I bring to the community's attention. But if you want an action to occur, you really want to prepare for that and move a motion to have a resolution that the town can vote to agree with. And the articles that have been passed or the resolutions that have been passed recently or being considered in some of the towns are a great stamp to be able to work off of, or template, if you will. All right, so here's the step by step. So if you're still not sure how to do this and you want to print this out and bring it to your town meeting day, please, you are all empowered to stand up and raise your hand and speak. And I hope that every single one of you do on any topic that you're looking to speak towards. But here is the example that you can utilize. So wait and raise your hand. So once other business is called, raise your hand to be recognized. The moderator will recognize you. Introduce yourself. My name is Caitlin Filkins. I live up here. I'd like to introduce an advisory resolution. Make the motion. So the motion is, I use the example I was just talking about here. I move that the citizens of whatever the town name is adopt the following advisory resolution condemning surveillance and enforcement practices of federal immigration agencies modeled on Williston's recent resolution. Someone needs to second that. When the motion is seconded, and this is good to kind of coordinate with someone beforehand so that you know that someone will be there to second. Then you can have that seconded. Once it's seconded, it will go to discussion. In After it is seconded, you'll read the full resolution out loud, likely. So you'll want to bring a copy of what you've got or put it in your phone or something. I like to have paper copy just to make sure my phone doesn't die or somewhat. And the moderator will let you know if they don't want you to read it for any reason. But typically, when you're passing a resolution, that's wanting to be read. I would, if I was doing this in our town meeting, I would bring many copies and allow others to read it as well around you and hand them out so that people are prepared for what you're going to be bringing to the table. Some people can't digest what's being said on the floor quickly, and it's good for them to have an option to read in front of them. Additionally, you could put it out in front porch forum beforehand so people have the opportunity to understand, and discuss on front porch forum before the meeting. In certain towns, you may or may not choose to do that, depending on the temperature and what that would result in terms of positive or negative during town meeting day in favor or not. But at least giving people the opportunity to read through that resolution or you're reading it out loud. Once the discussion has completed, so the moderator will let you know when that discussion has been completed, then someone would call for a vote, and the majority would win. So if it's passed, you don't have to say this, but I like to, especially in places where maybe the town clerk has just been voted in the last year, a little bit newer, so forth. You could say something like, I ask that the clerk record this vote and forward the resolution to the select board just to make sure that it's on record and everything is tied off on. Um, Again, it's advisory, but the power of advisory is that it's a voice of many and it's putting it out to a vote. And that is a huge stamp of, agreeance in the power of Vermont democracy. So use it and make sure that others know that you're going to be there and have them come and support you. It's good to have people around cheering you on. Um, this is the step by step. And then the only other thing I'll add in here is, know your rights. Again, this is sort of more of going back to the beginning, but you can appeal any ruling. So if for some reason the moderator doesn't allow, if someone seconds it and they don't allow discussion to happen on this or to be called to a vote, point of order. You should stand up for yourself and have the confidence to do so. And point of order can be called. And even if it's not right and you feel like you just aren't sure, call point of order. There's no harm in calling it if you feel like something's not being treated the way it needs to be in terms of the process. How you do that is, let's say the moderator tries to close other business before you speak. Point of order, article is still open and I wish to be recognized. So if they try to, close out other business, but you've still had your hand up to be recognized, they can't do that. You can call point of order. The moderator can set time limits, but they can't prevent people from speaking on an open article. And other business is an article, and it will be open until it is closed, and it will be formally closed. So advocate for yourself. The other thing is you can appeal. I mentioned this before, but this is how you do it. So you can say, I appeal the ruling of the moderator. The moderator must ask, shall the decision be sustained? If the majority, again, they'll go to a vote, says no, the vote overturns the ruling. And then if it's a tie, it would sustain the moderator. Another path that, especially for those who are maybe nervous about speaking out or being, the one that is calling to order, the one that is pushing back on the moderator, which again is totally great to do. That's what they're there for. That's their job, and they know how to do that and how to work within those means. You can talk to the select board afterwards. Approach your select board before or after, and make sure that they know how you feel and what your opinion is. That's what they're there for, or your city council, if you're in one of the cities as well. You can also go to one of the regular select board meetings and speak during public comment. I think the one huge advantage to call out about town meeting day, though, is that it really allows you the power to move something on the floor that you and the citizens of that town or city get to decide on the outcome versus the select board deciding on your behalf. So it is an incredibly powerful day. Again, if you need something after or before, your select board members, you've voted them in, should be approachable and should be there and ready to listen as well. All right. So here's some just general recommendations before your town meeting. Read the town report if you have one. That's Many towns are flipping over their town reports for this year. Or sorry, excuse me, I'm talking about two different things. Read your town report. There will be a report that goes through all the different things that have happened in that year. If you have a town plan, that's what I'm referring to. Is many towns are flipping over their town plan this year, and that's actually on some of the ballots to be voted on. Read through the town plan because that actually tells you a lot about, not what has been, but what will be. And even if it's not to ballot this year, read the existing town plan and see what has been committed to as the citizens of your town, to give some guidelines around, what essentially it's like company culture or community culture. What do you stand for? And feel free to use that as call out points during the discussion to come back to what everyone has agreed on together. Review the warning. So find your town warning. If you need help doing so, there's many people that can help with that, especially the town clerk, or anyone here, I'm sure would be happy to help as well. But review the warning, see what's on there. And if you don't understand something, there's many different paths that you can take in order to get understanding of what is warned on your town meeting day. One of the key things is that each town or city is required to cover what is being warned before town meeting day. They need to go through the articles that are warned and talk about them in detail, especially on that Australian ballot side of things. So you'll find recordings, you can find informational meetings and so forth that would allow you to gain some more perspective on that. And I don't have this on here, but talk to your neighbors, talk to the people in your communities and start talking before town meeting day. I think a lot of folks wait until town meeting day happens in order to have these discussions. And sometimes they're really difficult discussions and they can be uncomfortable and they can be things that your neighbors might not want to talk about, but you're going to talk about it anyways at town meeting day. So figure out how you feel, figure out, how your neighbors feel and listen, and take in opinion and make your own. Um, if you need anything in terms of town meeting day, again, your town clerk can certainly help you out. Town clerk can also do voter registration. The select board can give you the warning agendas. They can provide more information if you need. Really great select board members would offer to meet you for coffee if there's some things that you want to talk through or hop on a phone call if there's anything in particular that you're just curious about or need more information about in order to participate. And then you can visit your town website. Ours is richmondvt.gov, and it has a lot of resources on it. It has all of the agenda topics previously. It has all of the meeting notes that we've had so far. There's also an AI resource for meeting notes. And it allows you to search those for certain topics. I will find that while we're wrapping up here, or we'll send that out as a follow-up. But you can utilize that to, look up, when was this topic discussed, or what happened in the meetings in the last 2 years where this topic came up, or so forth. So it's a great resource to be able to quickly sort through information uh, um, on anything that has been recorded as public comment, as well as meeting comment and so forth. And then after your town meeting, don't stop. Town meeting day is great and it is a huge opportunity for your voice to be heard. But follow up. Follow up with your select board members, with your neighbors, attend regular meetings, and just know that your voice counts, your vote counts, and your presence counts, as does your neighbors. So help everyone get there, help everyone participate, and be active in your democracy. This is what we're fighting for, and this is what we all have had and our those before us fight for, and it's a great opportunity. And more than ever, we really need to speak up and speak out about what we want. And town meeting day is a great place to do that. With that, Jordan, I'll hand it back to you and Josh, unless there's any questions.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Caitlin. That was a very in-depth presentation. I really appreciate it. And I know we had a couple of questions pop up in the chat throughout that. I'll get to those in just a second. But I just wanted to say really quickly, we had framed this training about developing anti-ice resolutions for your town meeting day, but obviously this can be formatted to other issues as well. So be sure to check that out, get in touch with myself, Jordan, or Caitlin if you have any further questions. But I think maybe first of all, Caitlin, I'm going to direct you to Haley's most recent question in the chat about do you raise your hand, wait to be called on, and then say that you appeal the ruling or say point of order, or do you call those words out without raising your hand?
It can be either. So I would start with raising your hand and waiting to be called upon. But if the moderator for some reason, and I hope this never happens, but if for some reason the moderator is refusing to acknowledge your existence or that you are trying to, you can call out point of order. You can call that out without having to be, called upon, and that is really the power of the point of order. So don't be afraid to call that out even if you're not called upon.
Wonderful. And then Bethany is asking if your town doesn't do floor voting or hybrid style, can you still bring a resolution to town meeting?
So not this year, unfortunately. So if your town doesn't do floor voting or hybrid style, it would have had to be on the warned agenda, and we are past the date that we can petition to have things added to the warned agenda, or the warned ballot, essentially. Next year, if there are still things that we need to put on, I'm sure there will be something along the lines that we need to put onto the ballot. You can petition for things to be placed upon the ballot, and in many places and cases, as long as you have 10% of the citizens of your town or city on the petition, the select board has to put that onto the ballot. They're required to. So unfortunately, we're a little past time for this year. So those in towns that have just the Australian ballot, I would lean more towards pushing your select board or city council to pass a resolution themselves. And to discuss that in town meeting or in those city council or select board meetings, bring that to them for sure.
Thank you. And then Jordan asked a question for folks who don't have those floor meetings. Are there ways that maybe we can still be recognized by the town, or bring this to the public's attention?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll go back to a couple things and I'll get more specific here. So I wanted to frame this up in terms of like anything that that is being discussed at town meeting day. I want everyone to understand your rights in being able to participate in that conversation and being able to actively influence, what happens and what the outcomes are. That is our rights as citizens of Vermont. And I want to make sure everyone feels empowered with that. And there is a lot of work needed right now in terms of local government, and there's a lot of power in local government in response to ICE and immigration federal agencies generally. The resolutions that are being passed in certain towns, Williston was the first, and they have a great version of that. Richmond, like I said, is reviewing ours between meetings. We brought it up in our last meeting. It will be voted on our next meeting. It's on our warrant agenda. Those can be super powerful in your select board or your city council agreeing to that and showcasing to the town and the state that we're all aligned with that message. Some folks have changed it a little bit. I heard that Burlington's was a little bit different and maybe not as pointed. And make sure that you're continuing to voice what you believe in. If the messaging isn't pointed in the resolution that's been passed, you can go back and ask them to amend it. Things can be amended. You can change it. Just because it's passed doesn't mean that you can't go back to it. So I would keep pushing on your boards. They are there as representation that you voted in. And so your job is to make sure that they are hearing your voice and that they're representing you appropriately. Some of the other things that are really key right now is I brought this up at our last select board meeting. This is emergency preparedness. If a town, regardless of what their viewpoint is of immigration federal agencies, this is emergency readiness. If ICE were to come to any of our towns and no one had done anything to prepare, it's the same type of thing as a fire happening in a town building and no one understanding where to go to the exit. We must make sure that our town officials, that our town employees, all understand what to do. Because the day that a federal agency walks into the building, you don't want to be then figuring it out. And you want to make sure people are informed, that they're safe, and that they have an understanding of their rights and the rights of the people around them. And we have a really great partnership, and we're very fortunate in Richmond with our police chief. And we have a local force that's just Richmond. And he gave a great overview of rights in our last select board meeting. And he really kept it to a point where, he's not showing his favor in any way because that's his job. His job is to protect and serve. And other police forces, I hope, follow suit in that there's a lot to do to inform the town of rights and public spaces and the nuances of all these things. And you can push on your select board or your city council to have those occur. I think it's incredibly powerful to have a police chief in your town or that's serving your town speak to citizens' rights and be open to questions on what if. And some of those questions were really powerful in the last meeting. That is recorded. You can watch it on the Richmond town website as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Caitlin. I think that is all the time we have for questions right now. But again, if you guys um, have more questions, feel free to follow up with Caitlin, myself, or Jordan. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Jordan, who's going to walk us through the first half of our sort of policy and VPIRG update in the realm of advocacy that we're doing around the state.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. And thank you so much, Caitlin. That was really helpful. I learned a ton. I had no idea about half of this stuff, so really appreciate it and looking forward to getting this out to as many folks as possible. And just give me a moment as I work to share my screen. And we will wrap this up quickly within the next 10 minutes. So thank you for hanging in there. All right, should be loading in now. Great. Okay, so excited right now to cover some of what VPIRG is up to, some important events that you can register for, and actions that you can take tonight. So, in case folks are less familiar with our work, VPIRG, or the Vermont Public Interest Research Group, is the largest nonprofit consumer protection and environmental advocacy organization in the state. We were founded in 1972 and have been keeping very busy ever since. And you can pretty much break down what we do into four main buckets: public education, grassroots engagement, state house advocacy, and coalition building. You could often find VPIRG staffers tabling at or hosting community events, knocking on doors all around the state, tracking important pieces of legislation in the State House, and connecting with all kinds of Vermonters and Vermont organizations to further our collective missions. Since we are in the midst of the 2026 legislative session, I'll also cover our legislative program areas. They include climate and energy, environmental health, consumer protection, democracy, and recently, immigration. We focus on these issues year-round, and right now we're advocating for the bills that could have meaningful impact within these program areas. So we've got a few quick updates to share. And again, for the sake of time, we're going to keep it pretty top level here, but definitely happy to connect offline for folks looking to dig into the weeds of any of these updates. So first, we're really excited to see progress on the Portable Solar Bill, or S202, which recently passed out of the Senate on a unanimous 29-0 vote. It has since been referred to the House Committee on Energy and Digital Infrastructure, so more to come there. And in case you're not familiar, portable solar is essentially exactly what it sounds like: small, accessible, affordable solar panels that would provide benefit to Vermonters who are typically left out of the solar transition. So, folks, for example, who rent an apartment. And so these panels could be used on patios, balconies, porches, against a back fence, and really they only need to be plugged into an exterior wall outlet. So the intention of this bill is to cut through the red tape, removing fees, permits, and wait times to ensure that anyone who wants to access this form of solar power can do so. On immigration, the Law Enforcement Identification Bill, or S208, and the Sensitive Locations Bill, S209, both just passed out of the Senate Committee on Judiciary last week with a unanimous 5-0 vote. S208 actually passed out of the Senate today on a 27-2 vote, and we are expecting a vote on S209 tomorrow. So for clarification, the Law Enforcement Identification Bill would require that all law enforcement officers, local and federal, identify themselves by name and or through the prominent display of a badge number. They would also be prohibited from wearing facial coverings to conceal identity. Of course, there are some exemptions for health and safety here. And then the Sensitive Locations Bill would ensure that places like community shelters, healthcare facilities, and schools would be protected, meaning an ICE agent would not be able to detain individuals at any of those locations. So this law actually already exists for Vermont court buildings and the Vermont State House. So this would be an expansion in a sense. So Josh, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the recent ICE resolutions and what we've got going on with environmental health?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Jordan. So regarding ICE resolutions, at this point, both the Vermont House and Senate have advanced and passed resolutions that respond essentially to Operation Metro Surge that has been happening in Minnesota, both citing the fatal shootings of U.S. citizens and then the broader constitutional concerns raised by the tactics that Americans have witnessed there. The Vermont House has adopted H.R. 12 with a vote of 106 to 25, more or less aligning itself with Governor Scott's call to pause that operation and reaffirm core constitutional rights. And then on the Senate side, their resolution SR 21 goes a little bit further in condemning the killings outright and urging the federal government to suspend the operation, de-escalate enforcement, and restore due process back to immigration practices. And then together, the two chambers are really sort of working in tandem to send a clear signal that Vermonters expect accountability, restraint, and want to continue to see constitutional protections when immigration enforcement is concerned. Um, and then in the environmental health sector, we are taking strong strides to advocate against the use of paraquat and protect our communities from plastics pollution. And so on paraquat, if you haven't heard it before, that's okay. I'm recently new to the word myself, but it is a highly toxic herbicide, so toxic that even a teaspoon can be fatal. And growing evidence really links it to Parkinson's disease and other serious health impacts. Currently, across the world, more than 70 countries have already banned paraquat, yet it's still used on crops here in the United States, including in Vermont. So this legislative session, our environmental health advocates are at VPIRG are working to advance bills S-176 and H-739, which would finally prohibit its use in our state and better protect farmers and nearby communities. This is a preventable harm, and we should really take every single step we can to prevent it. And then on the plastics front, plastic pollution touches every single part of our lives, as I'm sure you're all aware. And Vermont has an important opportunity to lead here in this area once again. So VPIRG is actually supporting Senate Bill 247. This bill would move our state forward by banning dangerous chemical recycling, regulating intentionally added microplastics, and prohibiting the harmful chemical DEHP in medical IV bags and tubing. And these steps really push back on an industry that has misled the public for decades about recycling and really what is going into plastics and the impacts those are having on our environment. And by advancing this bill, we stand to really protect both our citizens' health and our environment. And then on Canvas recruitment. So if you're unfamiliar with VPIRG, And even if you are, I'm sure you may have at some point living in Vermont have received a knock on your door from a college-aged young adult who is probably sweating and hopping off a bike and really excited to talk to you about democracy or the environment or climate change. Every summer, we depend on young Vermonters to sort of answer that call to go talk to other Vermonters about critical policy work happening in the state and really break down barriers to accessing your state and local governments. And if you know a young adult or are yourself a young adult, feel free to um, send this link that I'm dropping in the chat right now to someone who you think might be really good at canvassing and talking about VPIRG priorities that we've already mentioned here, and some that we haven't even dreamed up yet. So thank you so much for that. And then Jordan, I'm ready for the next slide. And it wouldn't be a good VPIRG event without talking about future events, of which there are a handful. So the next upcoming event is an ACLU Lobby Day this next Friday, February 20th at the Vermont State House. And ACLU is asking folks, members and residents of Vermont alike, to join them at the State House as they advocate for their policy agenda, face to face with legislators talking about civil liberties. And then after that, VPIRG is hosting an immigration legislative panel and public commentary night. So if you're curious what Vermont can and is actually already doing in the face of excessive federal overreach regarding immigration enforcement, we are hosting a panel with Senator Vahovsky, Representatives Dodge and Klepner, and a couple of others who will soon be announced at the Fletcher Free Library on February 23rd in Burlington. So be sure to join us then and RSVP at the link that Jordan dropped in the chat to make sure you get all the information as we continue to update this event. And then you may have heard, but if not, I'm happy to tell you that it is time again soon to participate in No Kings 3 for Vermonters to stand up and push back against attacks on our democracy. So please find your local protest on March 28th. More information about that coming soon as well. And then lastly, we're VPIRG and our partner organizations on April 11th from 10 to 4 p.m. We'll be hosting the Vermont Changemakers Summit, which is a summit aimed at training our communities to organize successfully at the grassroots and organizational or nonprofit level. This event will be educationally based and is both for the entry-level advocate who's interested in learning how to make a change in Vermont for a better future, as well as the seasoned organizers who are looking to build more connections across the state and continue to build their toolkit. This is how we really continue to unite as a state and prepare together for the next 3 years of a Trump administration, but also for a lifetime of ensuring generations of Vermonters can continue to experience a welcoming and wholesome democracy as much as that is possible. And then take the survey that Jordan also posted there in the chat to help us develop content and stay tuned for our official registration page that is dropping next week. And then Jordan, I'm ready for the next page. And then here are a couple of calls to action to go along with those events. So you can designate a resolution leader for your town meeting in accordance to everything Caitlin went over earlier this evening. And again, we'll follow up with this recording if you need to send it to somebody to help them understand how to best draft that resolution and get it into their town meeting day. We're also asking folks to call the State House to ask their representatives or senators, leave a message for them, and ask them to support bills S-126 and H-739. These would protect our communities from that toxic herbicide paraquat. And then we have an action page for our plastics pollution campaign, which would essentially connect you via email with your legislators very quickly. You can send a message in support of those plastic pollution bills. And those are the only actions we have for the night. I think we have one more slide, Jordan. I'm ready for that now. Thank you. And then again, stay connected. You know, we went over a lot of content tonight. Feel free to reach out to either myself Again, I'm Josh Ferguson. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm VPIRG's lead field organizer. And you can reach me at jferguson@vpirg.org or connect with Jordan Hayden, who uses she, her pronouns, who is our Democracy Vermont director. And she can be contacted at jhayden@vpirg.org. Or Caitlin, if you would be so helpful as to drop your email in the chat for any town meeting day questions or contacts. That's really all we have here tonight, folks. I'm going to leave it open to Jordan just in case there's anything else. But if there's not, it was really great having this time with you all. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your night, and I hope you all have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, everyone. I have nothing else. So please enjoy your night, and I hope we see you all very soon. Take care.
Thank you all.